Good morning, boys and girls. Today in our language on page 161, we're going to review adjectives and adverbs. I had several students last week text me because they had some questions about this because they were getting things mixed up and they couldn't remember what we had learned. So we're going to review. So if you'll get out page 161 of your language workbook, these are the first three sentences of Think A, and we're going to go over them. We're going to read the directions step by step. There are a lot of directions in language. And some of you were mentioning to me last week how hard language was. And it is, because there's so many steps that we have to make sure we do. So let's look at the first step. It says, draw a line dividing the subject and predicate parts of each sentence. Boys and girls, we know how to do this from way back, months ago. So let's look at the first sentence. The full moon shone brightly on the quiet lake. All right, we have to divide between the subject and the predicate. Well, what is the subject? Who is this sentence about? It's about the moon. And what did the moon do? He shone. So we're going to draw a line between moon and shone. Now, the next part of the directions, number 2. Underline each verb twice. Underline each subject once. Okay, well, we just talked about what the subject and the verb is. What is this sentence about? It's about the moon. So we're going to underline moon one time. And what did the moon do? He shone. So we're going to underline shone 2 times. Let's go to step 3 of the directions. Draw a box around each noun, including the subject. Okay, boys and girls, we know that a noun is a person, place, or thing. So we're going to draw a box around every person, place, or thing we see in this sentence, including the subject, because the subject is always a noun. So, moon is a noun. I'm going to draw a box around moon. The only other noun in this sentence that is a thing is lake. And so I'm going to draw a box around the lake. Step 4. Circle each adjective and draw a small arrow from the adjective to the noun it describes. Okay, boys and girls, let's go to the first noun, which is moon. What kind of moon was it? Remember, with an adjective, you have to ask yourself, what kind, how many, which one, or whose. For this one, for the moon, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of moon was it? The full. Boys and girls, remember, the is an adjective. Some of you forgot to circle the on your papers last week as an adjective. The is an adjective. So we're going to circle the and full, and we're going to draw an arrow from both of those words over to the moon. Now, go to the next noun, which was lake. What kind of lake was it? The quiet. So I'm going to circle the and quiet, and I'm going to draw an arrow from those words to lake. The last part of the directions, number 5. Circle each adverb and draw a small arrow from the adverb to the verb it describes. Now remember, an adverb describes the verb. Adjectives describe the nouns, but adverbs describe the verb. Well, what's the verb in this sentence? Shone. So now you have to ask yourself, how did it shone? It shone brightly. So I'm going to circle brightly, and I'm going to draw an arrow backwards from brightly to shone, because that is the adverb that describes the verb shone. Now look here, boys and girls. Look at all the markings you had to do for that sentence. That is a lot of underlining, circling, and drawing arrows. This is what makes language difficult. You have got to take it part by part. Remember, boys and girls, everything that we have learned this year in math and language, I have taught you to take it one direction at a time. Let's look at the next sentence. This is number 2. Some children excitedly watch the comet through a large telescope. Direction number 1, we got to divide between the subject and the predicate. Well, what is the subject? Who is this sentence about? It's about the children. What did the children do? They watched. So look here. You've got to divide right here. Don't divide between children and excitedly, because excitedly is not the verb. You have to divide between children and watched. All right, now let's go find all the nouns. The next part says, underline the verb twice and the subject once. Well, who is the subject of the sentence? The children. And what did the children do? They watched. Now, let's go find all the nouns and put a box around them. Well, we know children is a noun. Box here. A comet is a noun because that's a thing in space. So I'm going to put a box here. And a telescope is a noun because that's another thing. So I have 3 boxes. Now the next part says, circle all the adjectives that describe the noun and draw an arrow to them. Start with children. What kind? How many children? Some children. So we're going to circle some and draw an arrow here. Comet. What kind of comet was it? The comet. So I'm going to circle the and draw an arrow here. Telescope. What kind of telescope was it? Or which one was it? A large. I'm going to circle A and large and draw an arrow from those. Remember, boys and girls, A is an adjective. The next part. Now we're going to circle the adverb that describes the verb and draw an arrow from it. Well, the verb is watched. How did the children watch? Excitedly. So I'm going to circle excitedly and draw an arrow from excitedly to watched. Looky there, boys and girls. There's another sentence. The only word that doesn't have anything done to it is the word through. All right, last one. This one is easier because it's short. That star is a dwarf star. First thing, divide between the subject and the predicate. What is this sentence about? It's about the star. What is our verb? Is. Remember, is a helping verb. Not all verbs are action. So I'm going to divide between star and is. Then I'm going to underline the subject, which is star, 1 time. And the verb, which is 2 times. Now I'm going to go put a box around all of the nouns. Well, star is a noun. And star down here is a noun. Dwarf is not a noun. Don't put a box around dwarf. Now let's go find the adjectives that describe these 2 nouns. What kind of star was it? That star. So I'm going to circle that and draw a line, an arrow from that to star. Then I'm going to come down here to this star. What kind of star was it? A dwarf star. So I'm going to circle A and dwarf, and I'm going to draw a line, an arrow from A and dwarf to the word star. Now, the next part is to find the adverb that describes the verb. Guess what? There is not an adverb in this sentence, boys and girls, so you won't have an adverb circled. So, pay very close attention. Most of these sentences will have an adverb, but this one does not. So you will not have to circle an adverb because there is not one. Okay, boys and girls, go back, look over these, and that will help you with page 161. Now, the next video I'm going to do is going to be about diagramming because some of us had trouble with that. So stay tuned for the diagramming video.